To use the temperature sensor, I will go down here to the lower right corner where it says Build. You have many options here for what you want it to look like. In this case, I'll choose this one here, the 3 displays on the same page. If I had multiple types of data to display, this could be very powerful. In this case, I'll just give you a feel for what it could look like. I'll choose a dial here, and this will be a temperature dial. If I select, this is very important, select measurement. What measurement do you want? I want it to be temperature. Degrees C is appropriate for me, and there we go. Okay, so I've got a little dial here that will read temperature. Now let's say I want digits. I want to see precisely what is the temperature. So I click on the digits there. Once again, select measurement. It will be temperature, degrees C. Alright, so I've got a dial, I've got digits, and here I'll have a graph. You can see this icon is a graph. And select measurement here is a little harder to find, not so obvious. And now I have 2 types of measurement, time on the x-axis, and how about temperature on the y-axis. So there we go. So now I've got dial, digits, graph, ready to collect data. To collect data, I'll start with this play button in the lower left-hand corner. It's green. Perhaps before I do that, I should think about how frequently I want to collect the data. So here's sampling options. Right now it's set for 2 Hertz, that's 2 samples per second. I could change that to be 10 Hertz if I want, but that's probably too much data, so let's just try 1 sample every second, periodic, and I have no condition for stop, but you could put one in if you had a specific stop condition. Okay, so now periodic 1 Hertz. Here we go, let's collect data. Okay, so it's reading the room temperature right now, which is a little warm because it's August. And now I'll warm the thermometer with my hands. And you can see the temperature rising on the graph as well as on the digits and on the meter, which is relatively useless. Alright, so you can see it's taking 1 data point every second. It's connecting the dots. If I wanted more precise or more detail, I could have it at a higher frequency of data collection, but this looks great. Alright, now I'll start to cool it. I'm putting it in front of a fan here. Actually, I'm not. I'm just waving it in the air and it will start cooling down. And that's the way you collect data. So I'll now stop collecting data, which is lower left-hand corner of the screen. The play button is now orange, and I'll click that and it will actually stop. To analyze my data on the graph, I have a lot of options here. So this is the icon you want to click. One of the most useful is typically this scale to fit, which gives me a much better representation of my data. I can show statistics. Okay, let's say I'm interested in the portion of the graph where it's rising, so I use this tool to select a region of the graph, and I could then analyze this sector, not the whole thing, but this sector. Very important, you have to click on this Done button. Otherwise, it doesn't know that you're actually happy with your selection. Like maybe I'm not happy with my selection. Maybe I say, oh, I really want it to look more like this. And now I'm happy with my selection. Done. And this Greek letter sigma will give you statistics. In this case, it's temperature data. Let's say I wanted the minimum, the maximum, the mean. That would make sense for temperature data. And it shows me what the statistics are for this selected region. And if I want to pull that over, I'll pull it over. So there we go. I can add text using this annotate, the big T for text. I can say this is where I warmed the thermometer with my hands. Okay, so I've got the text there. I say OK, and you can see that is associated with this section. Once again, if I don't like the placement of the text box, I can drag it over. There we go. So maybe that's the graph I want, and that's the way you use the Sparkvue to collect data and make a nice graph and put some annotations on the graph. You can also do a curve fit if you wanted. If you're saying I want an equation, maybe it's linear, this clearly isn't, maybe I want a quadratic or power fit, I can use all these different choices to make an equation, mathematically model the data I've collected. You can have multiple text notes, multiple annotations, and but you can only have one statistical display as far as I know. Let me select this region here, show you one more thing. This looks to me, this is where it's cooling, but it looks to me like a fairly linear cooling rate. And once again, I have to click done up here. All these are grayed out until I click done. And then I can say, well, what is the slope there? It's linear, so it's reasonable to ask what is the slope. And you can see here, the slope, m, is negative 0.20, and that would be degrees per second. Time in seconds, degrees Celsius, so degrees per second. That's the rate of cooling as I was waving it in the air. Clearly there's a different rate of cooling here where I was no longer waving it in the air, just letting it sit on the table.